Una, dos, tres. Bienvenidos a Piratas Digitales. El día de hoy tenemos un gran invitado, el doctor Sergio Canavero. Es uno de los doctores, creo, más increíbles en el mundo de la medicina y que está rompiendo las barreras sobre las posibilidades del ser humano, el futuro de la medicina. Y bueno, Dr. Sergio Canavero, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm such a fan of your work, and I'm just thrilled that you accept this invitation to the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me. I am really thrilled to be here with you.
So it's interesting. It's interesting what your work proposed about the first head transplantation to a body, and I think that it's the way of the future, because if you compare it with what you're proposing, it is very similar to the early stages of the medicine, when people were dissecting bodies to explore, to expand the possibilities of what can we achieve in medicine in order to have a better life. But taking that as a consideration, many people of the medical community are like opposed, and like they only see like the bad things of what you're proposing related to human head transplantation, instead of looking at the possibilities. How did you overcome like these like downturns from the medical community, and how did you overcome it, and what keeps you motivated? Because you are doing like a solo journey towards to help humanity and expanding the possibilities of medicine. So how do you keep the motivation?
Well, first of all, I want to be clear on one point. The medical community has been disproven over the past 80 years. And right now, I can tell you that head transplantation is a medical non-impossibility. It means that it is technically feasible. We even devoted an entire academic book to it, with all medical and technical details on how to do head transplantation. And actually, we already moved on to brain transplantation. But before we start, in 2021, cancer, Alzheimer, we died of, despite billions of dollars poured into this field over 50 years or more. There is a basic failure of academic medical research in tackling these disorders. But actually what drove me is what was not a cancer nor other stuff. It was actually aging. What I find intolerable is that after 3 million years of evolution, we are still easy prey to forces we don't control. And that means death, aging and death. I'm totally sure that many out there understand what I'm talking about and are fully on my side. How do you tackle a problem like this? Actually, I've been studying and researching this field for about now 40 years. And the only thing that comes to mind is this. Since we are still unable to tweak anomalous biochemistry that drives cancers or the disease generating mechanisms in the body, there is only one solution, is that when the body goes, another body comes in. So let me explain better. Let's say that we are unable to reverse aging with drugs, for instance. The only way is to replace the body with a young one. So this is the general theorem. You have an old body, you replace it with a young one. First, head transplantation is actually rather simple. The real problem was reconnecting the spinal cord. But I can tell you, because I'm sure that no one still knows, but starting in November 2020, it appeared on several news outlets here in Europe. We applied the Gemini spinal cord fusion protocol that allows the reconnection of the spinal cord during head transplantation for the cure of spinal cord injury. So while going to the moon, we discovered a way here on Earth to make people walk again. We'll send you a link that you can attach to your podcast where people can really see what is going on. So I want to be clear. The entire process of a head transplantation is feasible as we speak. It is no longer science fiction. I will explain to you and to your audience why we did not disclose more data. But I say again, we wrote an academic book where every single detail is illustrated. But in 2017, November, I was in Vienna, Vienna, announcing that the first full rehearsal on fresh human cadavers had taken place in preparation for the live one. 24 hours later, the Pope, out of Rome, said that not everything that is technically feasible is ethically, from a Catholic point of view, acceptable. And at the same time, politically oriented academicians in the United States and Europe pressurized China to stop the entire thing. Actually, China is only one of the countries where we did stuff. So the question is, why a religion? Actually, I can tell you it's not only the Catholics, but it's actually Islam, it actually Buddhism. I mean, basically we brought together all religions against us in one single front for one simple reason. How do religions hold sway over mankind? Simple, by appealing to our fear of dying. So since we are all afraid of dying, and having something like this nostrum coming from a religion telling you that no problem, okay, you'll be fine, etc., that's a powerful way to control the minds and souls and the hearts of people around the world. Then comes this heaven initiative that tells you, hey man, look, there is a new way to keep you here on this planet for a longer time than expected from biological causes. So we went hush hush. That is, from that moment on, whatever we did it in secret. I mean, not under the spotlight of media interference and things like that. But I can tell you, and I repeat it strongly, that number one, the Gemini spinal cord fusion protocol, which is the engine of the whole thing, works perfectly. And you will see how it is applied to spinal cord injury, chronic spinal cord injury. So again, while going to the moon, we also brought back some technology that is useful to people with other conditions rather than dying out of aging. Number two, head transplantation is feasible now. So we just moved on, I can tell you. And since I don't like to keep secrets, but I also wrote a book here on the technology of brain transplantation, which we're working on now. We already achieved the milestones. So now I'll tell you what the difference between head transplantation and brain transplantation, which is important.
It's really amazing what you're saying, because all the medical breakthroughs should be looked from a scientific point of view. I mean, even though religions they function in a way in society, but they are not scientists. They are not scientists, and even though lots of barbaric things religions have done to humanity, so I think that it's pretty amazing that you even though sometimes you're facing these downturns even from the medical or from society itself, but as innovators, I think that sometimes it's a lonely road, but once everything is put in place, everybody wants to be in the picture. So I think that it's truly amazing. And regarding what you were saying about brain transplantation, before I have this interview with you, I talked like with 20 doctors and neurosurgeons, traumatólogos, lots from different areas, and everybody say, "Hey, man, it's impossible." But what's interesting is that I just find one doctor that he's actually my father-in-law. He's 70 currently, and when I mentioned it, he told me, I think that it's very breakthrough, but what about brain transplantation? I think that could be like more approachable, or more less of a complex to execute it. But I mean, he's not a certain neurosurgeon, but I was amazed that someone from that he's a baby boomer has this vision. Instead of I talked with millennial doctors and from different generations, and everybody was like they don't want even to think about it. But I mean, I don't understand that, because the possibility of extend life has always been in the history of humankind. They are looking to it. So I think that it's something to look on, but again, to extend life, I'm sure that it will be like super pricey, but the extension of life will be accessible just to people that are wealthy. Or what are like the limitations, or what are your thoughts around it?
Absolutely. First of all, let's start point by point. Let's cover it point by point, because we raised several points. To those neurosurgeons who believe that brain transplantation is impossible, once again, there is a book, a technical book, not for lay persons, just for doctors, where I tell them what we are doing. And brain transplantation per se might sound like impossible, because every neurosurgeon knows that the brain is attached to what is called meninges. That is a protective layer, and inside this protective layer run important vessels. Actually, brain transplantation, as I call it, is a cerebral meningoanastomosis. It means that you transplant, yes, the brain, but inside the meninges. So this is very technical, but whatever neurosurgeon might be listening to this, he will understand. So they read the book, they will understand what we're doing because we are well advanced into that. So the impossible, even now, so head transplants are no longer impossible. Brain transplants are coming online quite fast. So, but that said, you raised an important point of concern, and I agree with you. Actually, I even agree with the critics, the many critics that raised this point. This stuff is expensive, no doubt about it. So we are creating a new layer of inequality that doesn't sit well with many people out there. And my personal response to this is simple. I am a technician, not an ethicist, not a philosopher, although I have my philosophical views, but I'm just a technician, just an inventor, someone who comes to you as a member of the society and tells you, hey, I invented this. I'm working with this. And now when it's ready, I mean off the shelf, it's up to you to decide whether you want it or not. I can tell you that the United Nations, UNESCO, actually banned head transplants. Complete ban. They just met in Milan in 2018 to discuss the legal repercussions and the legal aspects of a head transplantation, and they found it intolerable. Even if possible, it should be banned. And the reason is simple. At the end of a conference I gave in Scotland, in the United Kingdom a few years ago, at the end of my talk, a guy raised his hand, and the first question was, what about pensions? Because of course there is absolutely no doubt that if you make almost 8 billion people immortal or para-immortal, I mean, you're going to break the bank, there is not enough room on this planet, etc., etc. But there is a loophole. There is a way out. And so this is my proposal for your attention, and it's up to you to decide. As you know, there are people out there who want to conquer Mars. There are people out there who want to conquer planets and more. As you know, astronomy discovered millions of exoplanets, and many of these probably are similar to Earth, so they are habitable. So my proposal is this. Elon Musk wants to send people to Mars, and that's a 6 month, even with nuclear propulsion, it would take still 2 months out there in space. Still, we don't have a way to protect these people from cosmic radiation. It means that you are engendering the perfect conditions inside the body for cancer and things and stuff like that. You are accelerating their aging process, working in a different gravity would impact their physiology. You are wrecking them. So on the idea is this. Why not head transplantation? And I will tell you what kind of bodies could be utilized, which is more ethically charged, but I have two. Why not just telling these people, look, I'm sending you out there. You are basically on a suicidal mission. There is no question about that. But I can guarantee that should you just come up with cancer or whatever, I can replace your body. And how do you replace this body? Our proposal that we published in the American Journal of Bioethics Neuroscience 4 years ago was to use anencephalic clones. So we are moving the technology fast forward. As you know, in 2018, China announced that they had cloned monkeys for the first time. And there was a big step towards, of course, cloning humans. Only for these people, only for these people, you can actually tap head transplantations and provide them with clone their bodies. Of course, this technology has yet to mature, has yet to come in many ways, but in the 21st century, it will come, and you will have a technology just to pair and start cosmic exploration. I think that head transplantation right now could be the first step towards solving many problems that come with space exploration and cosmic colonization by humans. So this is one way that sort of a workaround to the ethical quandary that has been raised. Of course, it will have society to pay for it. Still, there is no question. There are billionaires out there. In the world, there are 2,300 billionaires that might decide to use the body of someone who is poor, organ trafficking. I agree with that, but organ trafficking already exists. It is not that by adding head transplantation, you increase the gravity of the problem. I mean,
the problem is still there, right?
Sorry?
No, the problem of organ trafficking, etc. The problem is still there. Is not
exactly.
Is not incentivized by head transplantation.
Exactly. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not God, as has been written because they wrote books. No, they wrote books about me. Even there is this nice book published in Mexico, by Dr. Más allá del cuerpo, Francisco González Crucí, who is a doctor who wrote a book, and a chapter is about me and head transplantation. It's very well written, but there are many more just coming out in America covering what I'm doing. And I had to tell you, I'm not God, so I'm just an inventor. Period. And I agree that this invention might be controversial, but then I have a question for you. In 1945, everybody remembers that America, and not only America, because they brought in scientists from basically all over the world, just triggered the first nuclear explosion, and they killed hundreds of thousands of people. Now, the question is, if head transplantation and the upcoming brain transplantation thing is about life, building nuclear stuff is about death. So what I want to stress and be clear about this is that I'm not accepting any criticism about the ethical nature of this, because the Catholic Church, Islam, or whoever, they did nothing about nuclearization of the military sphere in the world. They did not go there and told, I don't know, Truman, hey, you are a bad boy, you shouldn't do that, or whatever. So we humans are very good at killing each other, at creating means of mass destruction, and the more the better. And as you know, America, Russia, China, they are rearming to an unprecedented level, and all others are following. And they have a bone to pick with me about bringing something that is about life. So let me tell you a word that is clear. We humans are fucked up, but beyond belief. Or in a more humble way, we are failed creatures, because we have a strong evil attitude. So, I mean, again, it's not the problem of 2,300 people possibly wanting to extend their lives, and nothing to do with, once again, entire countries rearming, ready to kill each other. So, you understand?
Yeah,
I'm sitting pretty.
It's a paradox. Truly, it's a paradox, because a solution that it's about life, it's been held up, and like looking only the negative way, the negative results, instead of looking into this mass destruction guns that are out there that are killing people. And I think that is weird. Even though, for example, Catholics, the Catholic Church, he was supporting the Nazis in the Second World War. So it's weird. It's weird. It's. I think that humanity always are afraid like to the breakthroughs. And for example, when for example the health, the psychiatrist and the mental health is still an issue. And I think that the when it comes to brain, when it comes to that part, everybody is like so afraid into tapping into that. And it's weird. It's weird about it. So I want to ask you for. So there's a possibility of extend life by this solution and to solve some of the problems of diseases that humans can face through life. But what about the neurological aging of the brain? I mean, it has its limits. So how can people who go into this procedure can overcome that? What would be like a possible solution to address that?
Well, it's a good question, and we have, of course, a good response. And the response is heterochronic parabiosis. So, since I studied ancient Greek, let me just spell it out for you. Heterochronic parabiosis, let's start with parabiosis. Parabiosis means para, which means close to, and bios, which means, of course, life. Heterochronic, which means of another time, of another age. Let me explain that. Heterochronic parabiosis is a scientific phenomenon that's got on the scientific radar about 2 centuries ago. But it was only in the 1950s, that work in the United States clarified this simple thing. Let's say that now I'm 80 or 90 and you are 20 or even 18 or 17 or 15. If we cross-circulate, so we just put our circulations in contact, so to speak. So we bring them to influence one another by just simple, it's very simple to do. What happens is that I start, you who are young, are just supplying me with your young blood, and my old blood is removed. Of course, it's an ideal condition because I'm using all your blood, I'm killing you. But in animal studies where you can do whatever, it has been proven over and over again. So what happens is that your young blood, it contains molecules and other substances and then a hormonal profile that will impact my body and start a rejuvenation process. So we can rewind the aging clock biologically. You certainly heard about recent trials of a young blood. There are people with early Alzheimer, early dementia, who are receiving blood from young donors. But the problem is that, and it's a medical contraindication here, you can't receive many transfusions over time because there is a risk with iron overload and things like that. But imagine a brain inside an old brain with an old head transplanted on a young body, all blood coming from the young and produced by the young body, flushing through the brain continuously 24 hours, 24/7. I can tell you that the brain rejuvenates. So even if you're old, you're 80, your brain, I can tell you that the rejuvenation is massive. And we are looking at someone going from 80 to 40 within 1 to 2 years. It's absolutely incredible. This based on several observations, which are not free to discuss, but you can take my word for it. So here we have the solution. The only thing that I can tell you is why a brain transplant, if head transplants already work. First of all, there are two reasons. You start out with a head transplant for a simple reason, psychological. Let's say that you find yourself inside with a new body, but when you look, you still see your face. And I can tell you that there is no identity quagmire just arising from a head from a body with attached to another body, because actually our bodies, if you look at it, they are very similar. I mean, it is not that. Plus, of course, all those people are prepared in a virtual reality environment. So there is a preparation. Of course, it's not done like this, you know, because you don't wing it. You prepare it carefully. But I tell you, there is not a problem. Head transplants actually are the first step if you take into consideration the possibility of a rejection, a psychological rejection. So seeing your face, that's really allay this fear. But as you know, there are persons who transsexuals. We received a lot of emails from transsexuals from all around the world, and people like that who really would love to change the body. We also received many emails from people whose, let's say, beauty, okay, their looks are not to the liking of their owner. So they really wanted to change everything. So I can tell you, but this is of course for the future, but future means end of the century or past 2050. I mean, it's not here because we still had to work out the ethical details of what we're doing now. But imagine not liking your body. And we receive emails even with photos and pictures. My secretary really hit this up, and it's incredible. And I can tell you that only a brain transplant can work. So you take their brains and you just transplant onto whatever body, because of course this is still science fiction, but one day will become science. You can actually clone a body and then choose the sex of the body. You are going to body edit, as I like to call it, body editing. So you will do whatever you want. You will have the body you want. The only thing you need will be the technology to transplant your brain inside the body. So let's say you are a transsexual. Let's say M to F, male to female, or F to M, female to male. No problem. You transplant yourself onto the body of your choice. So you understand what are the implications and repercussions. I mean, it's going to change society in a way. Plus, of course, there is something even worse than this, which I covered in another book of mine, and I talked about in my TED Talk. But I want just to bring this up just for your attention, because it might be interesting. I am against religions, but I'm not against spirituality. It means that I've been studying consciousness for a long time, and I just concluded that consciousness simply is not generated by the brain. I belong to a group of neuroscientists and neurosurgeons going back a long time who believe that the brain filters consciousness, does not generate consciousness. From a practical point of view, nothing changes, but from a philosophical point of view, changes everything, because it means that consciousness somehow survives. We don't know how, we don't know where, but it means that consciousness is not attached to our body, or is another layer of our persona. This is actually what I can tell you. Number two, what religions are afraid of, because here you have a procedure that gets rid of the fear of death because it's giving you another 40, 50 years alive, and then the process can be repeated. But most cogently and most dangerously for religions, you have something that might prove that consciousness survives. Why? Because of a thing called near-death experience. Everybody heard about people having a heart arrest, seeing tunnels of light, etc. Science has been dismissive, has told you all that this is just a hallucination, and now we know it's not a hallucination. The brain, under harsh conditions, hallucinates in a completely, totally different way. So what happens is that during, when you transfer the head or the brain, there are a few minutes during which the brain is dead. There is no blood flowing in, there is no electrical activity, nothing, as dead as it gets. Then you replant it, you re-engage the circulation, etc., etc., and we can expect someone to tell us, actually, I wandered out there, I saw things, I felt just separated from the body, just like near-death experience. Let me just quote from a neurosurgeon, Eben Alexander, who wrote a book that has been translated everywhere, Proof of Heaven, about his near-death experience. This neurosurgeon was an atheist, did not believe in God, did not believe in was not religious, was materialist, was reductionist. I mean, garden variety scientist of today. And after what he saw, he wrote this book, A Proof of Heaven, and I can tell you that it changed his life completely. So these are things that scare religions, but religions can always say, yes, but here you have an experimental let's gadget, pardon my French, in which you can explore near-death experience. This is blow number 2. So heaven is a 1-2 against religions, and since media are controlled by strong powers, as we all know, and they write whatever, so that's why I'm so happy just speaking to you, some independent sources, so people can really wrap their head around this sort of stuff. So, but you understand what the implications of this.
Yes, definitely. It's truly amazing. And what's interesting is that it's been discussed a lot about transferring consciousness into another body. And right now, for example, with advances such as Neurological, what are your thoughts around it? But I think that is the possibility of transferring your consciousness into another body. It is truly amazing because I mean you can transmit all what you are, all your personality into another body. But what's interesting as well is that there's evidence that when you receive a transplant, you inherit some of the skills of the donor. Without knowing the donor, let's say you play piano and you receive an organ, and suddenly you start to develop like an interest for piano. I mean, when you transfer yourself into another body, could you acquire a new skill set, or will you inherit some of the personality? What are your thoughts around it? I mean, there's a lot of things that I mentioned, but I'm just someone that is really curious about this.
No, yeah, it's a good question. I covered this in several books I wrote in several languages. But let's discuss this. The problem of as you mentioned, there are reports in the medical literature of people receiving, for instance, a heart transplants, and all of a sudden developing certain new attitudes or new or acquiring new skills, as you say, and of course they are totally dismissed offhand by current medical thinking as absolutely impossible or things like that. But actually, work done by Michael Levine over the past few years tell us another story. Let's talk about the heart. The heart, actually, if you look at the anatomy carefully, you see that there are certain similitudes with the brain. And it wouldn't be impossible at all for the heart as a mixed electrical organ to acquire and store certain things about who we are ourselves. Of course, this is just, there is nothing solid here that we can really base on. But this is the reason why in the future we had to transplant clones, because clones are clear of anything, and they are your body. So there is no chance whatever that you might in some way acquire this new characteristics, personality coming from somebody else. But it's actually many who criticize head transplants told us about, raised the issue of identity. So with a new body, there are, body memories already sort of entrained in the muscles. Actually, the problem of identity is philosophical. I studied philosophy in high school. It was an elite high school. I can tell you that there are all sorts of views here, but based on what I can tell you is that identity, as far as we know, is not affected to any meaningful degree. Of course, you need to have a large number of head transplants, and that we had to wait, of course, in order to draw any conclusion. But for now, I can tell you that you are not supposed to encounter such a problem. But again, since not all heart transplantees report new features coming from their heart transplants, could be personality, skills, whatever, but only a few of this, would be interesting to look into that, to understand that. So it may be that one day with thousands of head transplants, it is possible receiving a body which is not their own, so from brain dead organ donors, something like that might happen. So this is terra incognita. We are just looking at something we don't understand. It just, look, in order just to give you a yardstick, it is like being in 1969, July 20th, we had just landed on the moon, but we are just looking around, assessing what is going on, how we can survive, etc. So we are just at square one of a long journey that will be transformative and change society as we understand it. I mean, now it's 2021. By the end of the century, people will be just referring to head transplants as, well, I'm going into the clinic and getting head transplant, in 1 month. They are just, arranging for my clone, whatever, etc., things like that. So it's like kidney transplant. Kidney transplant were, of course, a thing of the past. Now it's absolutely normal, like heart transplants. But in 1955, when the first kidney transplant took place, the guy who just performed it, Murray, was labeled as playing God, as doing something bad. The Catholic Church really leapt on him and just, buried him alive because this is going against God's will thing. Now it's just normal. I mean, kidney transplant, no one raises a single hair because it's normal. Okay, so once again, on that day, we will know that mankind has taken a path of life rather than a path of killing each other. And probably I won't be there, or I'll be, I don't know, perhaps I had transplant, me too. And we'll see. But it's an amazing, exciting future that we are looking at. There is no question about that.
What's interesting is that there is several movies that address some of this vision. For example, there's a movie called the Repo Man, in which basically you receive synthetic organs and you're paying it over life, etc. And there's a group of people recuperating those organs that people eventually couldn't pay. But also there's this movie called Gattaca, in which basically humans are pre-designed. There's like a two group of people, the ones that are designed and the ones that are an act of God. And
natural.
And also this movie, The Island, where as well they have this island of clones, and I think that I think that it's super exciting, like to think about the possibility of improving humans, of improving their health, extending the life. I think it's really amazing. I wanna go back. I wanna ask you. I mean, you grew in Torino, and you come from a poor family. And how did you decide How did you decide to become like a doctor and eventually say, hey, I want to become neurosurgeon? I think that it's not an occupation that is super common. I mean, in coming like from a background that, I mean, you have to face like a lot of challenges during that process.
Quite a lot. Look, I do believe in destiny, which in quantum mechanics would be something like super determinism, but actually I chose nothing. I still remember that at age 8, well, actually, when the media came to Turin, I showed them where I grew, and they agreed with me that it was not exactly a royal palace. But I still remember at age 8 watching TV, black and white, because at the time in Italy TV was all black and white, and I watched this episode of an American TV series, Medical Center, in which a doctor actually was involved in a car crash, and at the time there was no CT scan, no MR, and so they just ran an angiography. And I still remember that incredible bundle of whitish things that really stuck in my memory. I couldn't understand, but I still remember the word angiography, but at age 8 it meant nothing. But shortly thereafter, it was the turn of a guy who had received one of the first corneal transplants, and said, watching the sky, the blue sky again, is the greatest thing that might happen to a man. Those two things together stuck in my mind and somehow just tilted me towards a path, a medical path. But nothing would have happened if it were not for the fact that I always liked to study. I study a lot. I read a fantastic amount of literature. And in November 1979, which is the watershed, in November 1979, so I was almost 15, I went to a newsstand, which I returned to with the media, and actually the owner was surprised seeing all the media just at all. This is very important store. He said, why? Because actually at the time I was deep into comics, and my favorite comic book was The Amazing Spider-Man, which was translated in Italian. And I went, and on that day, which I still remember, I went to this store, to the new store, looking for something. I mean, a new mag, a new release, something, a new Marvel release, new Spider-Man, which actually in Italian is Uomo Ragno, and in Spanish is a Hombre Araña. And actually, my attention was drawn to this thingamajig, which was the cover of the Italian translation, the November issue of Le Scienze, Las Ciencias, the Italian translation of Scientific American. And it was the special issue devoted to the brain. For reasons unknown to me, I didn't find a new Spider-Man, unfortunately, but I was drawn to this sort of thing and started living through. I said, oh, wow. I bought it. I went home. I read it all in a couple of days. I understood absolutely zero, but I said, this is me. Because at the end of that issue, there was an article by Crick. Crick is one of the co-discoverers of DNA and turned neuroscientist, and who wrote that the greatest mystery of science is consciousness. That was it. I said, this is the path. It was like on the path to Damascus, you know, the emblem, the cross appearing, and said, in hoc signo vinces, in this sign you will win. So I decided that my life would have been devoted to brain research. Then came the second watershed in 1981. I was in Scotland. It was one of those trips where the less wealthy were brought by the municipality to other places in Europe just to make them see things, you know. So it was all paid for by the city of Turin. And in Scotland, I stumbled across this mag, in English, of course, talking about, with an article focusing on Robert White. Robert White, what, monkey head transplant, and that was like my second epiphany. So I saw the light. I said, this is impossible, this is incredible, this is way beyond belief, but I want to be part of it. I want to do that. Then, of course, on second thought, it was 1981. I said, okay, this guy, I'm finishing high school, but this guy, of course, will do it way before I even step into medical school. Well, actually, I can tell you that a book has been just published in America on Robert White, which is Mr. Humble and Dr. Butcher, about his life, and the last chapter is about me as his successor. So in 1981, 2021, so 40 years later, I'm the successor to Robert White, and for me it's a huge honor because that man was really a visionary. Of course, I did stuff that didn't sit well with many, and I had to be very frank with you. Transplanting a monkey head and keeping the monkey alive for a few days, I would have not done that. I mean, you do that, but you confirm that the monkey survived, that's alive, and then you euthanize the monkey, and that's what China has done exactly. I mean, you don't want to cause suffering to a monkey. So, but it was not the 1970. It was another age. It was another time. So you had just to put everything in context, not just looking at that with hindsight, with our sensibility, today's sensibility, etc. But it was amazing. So in 1983, and that is going to be interesting, I entered medical school. And 1 year later, I started working as an intern at the Institute of Anatomy at the University of Turin, where 3 Nobel Prizes worked. One was Rita Levi-Montalcini, the discoverer of the nerve growth factor, and the other 2 were 2 virologists, Dulbecco and then Luria, still in the neuro business. So it was pretty exciting. And all the focus of the Institute was on neuroregeneration. And that sat perfectly with me because, hey, man, this is really cool to be here because I'm going to do stuff here. And stuff I did. In 1986, so I started working on that, studying all the stuff that I could study. Was, of course, a medical library there. I read everything. And then came 1986. And in 1986, a paper was published by this American Dr. Bittner, who published this incredible feat. He took an axon, which is a nerve fiber, severed it, and applied the substance called PEG, polyethylene glycol, which by now is the most famous chemical in all the world over because it's been talked about over and over again. And I thought, oh my God, he can join one axon, but might he join many more fibers, etc., etc. So starting from there, I changed tack. I was no longer happy working in basic science. I had to move on to clinical science. And so I decided that the only way was, of course, to enter neurosurgery. And I did. And I did with the right man. The right man because this was the #1, numero uno guy in the world about central pain. Central pain is that pain you get after spinal cord injury or stroke. And he was absolutely numero uno. Top dog in the field, anywhere. And so I learned about things that would lead to Gemini, because Gemini, the spinal cord fusion protocol, doesn't really work by reattaching fibers, but by repairing this new highway I talk about in my tech talk. And of course we all publish that, but in the tech talk you can see me with spaghetti and bananas and just working my way through that, trying to explain. But that was how I made it. So by 2001 I had held the technology down because I also developed and published a lot of stuff about electrical stimulation of the nervous system. And electricity plays a major role in this entire enterprise endeavor. And so in 2001 I was ready. So why did I make the announcement in 2013? Because I was afraid. I was afraid because I was not ready. I was not ready in many ways, and they could have stopped my career. And I wanted to add more information. I wanted to garner more data, things like that. And so in 2012, after several other papers being published that related to this field, I felt confident that I could out there. Plus, I was 48. So at 48, I mean, you feel qualified just to go out there. In 2001, I was still 37, you know, this youngster coming out, attacking the academe. Well, by that time, I already had published monographs with the Cambridge University Press, etc., and other monographs, a lot of papers. So I was not actually intangible. I was not unassailable, but my academic standing was very high, so I could really, risk it. So I did, and well, what came later is, I think, is history. But I got an anecdote for you, and that's incredible. That this stuff this stuff, this heaven stuff, really struck a chord anywhere in the world. And so there is one bad thing I want to tell you and one good thing. The bad thing is that I have become the evil doctor of a video game. I never played video games in my life, but this is a Konami video game, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, in which I'm the evil doctor, and you can just Google it, Konami Sergio Canavero, and images, you will see this doctor, which is exactly the same. I mean, look-alike, totally, because to the eyes of many, I'm so wicked that I just deserve to be the evil doctor of a video game. That is the bad stuff. But the good stuff, and I have I never did, so I'm just doing that here on your podcast. I'm thanking Marvel. As you know, I'm still read Spider-Man, not today's Spider-Man, but all the issues from the 60s and 70s and 80s. And there's been a movie, Doctor Strange, in 2016. Dr. Strange is a neurosurgeon turned wizard, turned sorcerer after an accident. And at the beginning of the movie, he just says that he can fuse transected spinal cords. And that's me. That's Gemini. Because the guy who scripted the movie was at Annapolis in 2015 during my lecture in front of media from all around the world. It was a bit scary, but it really, packed a punch. And so I feel honored. So thank you for that. But that's to say how this heaven thing, actually there are people who are against it, but there are so many people out there who are really fascinated, attracted to it, and then it has become folklore. So it's really incredible, and I just wanted to raise this here on your podcast.
Right. I mean, I can imagine yourself you were watching the movie.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. It said, I can't believe it, because actually I talked with many guys, they introduced themselves, but there were so many at Annapolis that I have no real recollection of. And then I watched the movies, because I watched very few movies, but the Marvel ones, yes, I'm still a child in many ways. So while watching Doctor Strange, and I saw that, I said, what the heck is going on here? And so I just inquired. It was incredible, so incredible. But that's a good sign. That's the good sign, because it means that out there, not everyone is stolidly opposed to something like that it can really thrill people. It's incredible. I never meant to thrill people. I meant to make people live more. But still having people triggering emotions of this kind in people, it's incredible. It's an incredible journey. I can tell you, Gustavo, it's an incredible journey.
I can imagine. It. I wanna ask you. You're a jiu-jitsu practitioner, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your favorite MMA fighter?
Look, actually I do ninjutsu, which is a form of jiu-jitsu. MMA, of course I should say McGregor, but no, actually I prefer the other guy. This is a sub. Is from Russia, actually from Kazakhstan or something, from the Russian Federation. Is very good. But actually I'm non-violent, and I just took it up actually because I think it fortifies your spirit. It means this is a Japanese martial art in which you do a lot of stuff which have nothing to do with actually martial stuff. It's not really much. It's about controlling yourself. I'm a yoga master for many reasons. I took up yoga many years ago. I'm a deep meditator. So it really set perfectly with me. So having jujitsu, which is actually something that goes back centuries, which is also spiritual side, and it fortifies you, and it fortified me when I had to tackle all the media. Because I've been called everything and anything. I don't have just to go over it. All the epithets, all the four-letter words that just being addressed to me. It's very, you can just, find it on any browser. But it really fortifies you because many people really collapsed on the way in the history of science because they've been attacked. Look, my favorite guy has been Pasteur. Pasteur, the pasteurization, has been one of the two guys that led to the introduction of microbiology to the medical field, and the other, of course, is the German who discovered TB, but mycobacterium. But Pasteur was incredible. He went against the academe, didn't give a hoot about what he said. Every time he had to prove something, he called in the media, so the journalists. He showed them, look, I can cure this rabies with this thing of a jig, etc., etc. He was very assertive, very, in your face. And since I like history, I read a lot of stuff about history and about this guy, Pasteur, who was very famous, of course, but this assertiveness of his personality. And so it said well with me. That's why people always said, oh, Sergio is so, oppositional. Yes, I am oppositional because, of course, you attack me, you attack my ideas, and I have just to support them, just to prop them up, because otherwise they would disappear. Since I believe in what I do, and now, of course, more than ever, you want just to see these ideas through and have them see the light of day and have people understand what they're all about. So in the end, you could ask me, do you feel like a loser or a winner? Like now I feel like a winner, but not me. It's mankind. It's mankind that is the winner because we have multiple souls. We can be evil, we can be good, but we can fight. That is what a fighting spirit is, what defines us humans. We survived for 3 million years despite all odds. And I think that to honor all those who came before, you have to fight for your ideas if you truly believe in them, of course. Then the second question you might ask me is, don't you think you could be like a nutcase, like totally crazy, totally loco? And I can tell you there is only one way to distinguish, to tell apart a loco from the McCoy, from the real thing, from someone who is on the right side of history, and then if you look at the data. So, for instance, Leonardo Da Vinci was a super genius. He invented helicopters, he designed planes, he designed things that, that had to wait for centuries. Now, was it a loco or was it a genius or was it a visionary? I like the term visionary. He was a visionary. He just was born too soon. While in my case, happily, I was born at the right time, technology-wise, because the technology to do that and all the stuff I needed, all the data, actually came at the same time. So since this works, Gemini works, transplants work, so I'm no longer a loco, but I feel like I'm on the right side of history. But that's my opinion, of course.
Definitely, and philosophers call to this vision sonum bonum, in which you look for the greater good. It's a term that was taught by the Stoics. It's been such an honor, Professor, Um, I think that your vision of extend life and your vision to expand the possibilities of human health, I think that is the way of the future. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for sharing all these thoughts. And what's next for Dr. Sergio Canavero, and where can they follow you?
Oh, well, I can tell you. So once again, I want to just to that will raise a few. So once again, 2 years ago, I published another book because it has, and what I'm about to tell you will really discombobulate you. This is called the Frankenstein effect, extreme brain reanimation. And then I leave you. But this is important. Let's say that you are a healthy human being, and one day on the street you are shot to death. I mean, the bullet strikes your body, okay, and you start bleeding, you bleed to death. The EMS team arrives, tries massage, CPR, but you're gone. As far as current medicine is concerned, you're dead. Now I beg to differ, because I can tell you there is enough science out there that tells me that a body can be revived, a brain can be revived during an interval that spans 6 to 12 hours after being declared dead. It means that after your heart stops, there are the 6 to 12 hours during which you can still be revived by applying a protocol which we have begun to study. I can tell you nothing more because we just begun to study that, but this is absolutely amazing. So now I can't tell you if I'm a loco or not. You will have to wait until, but I published the book so that medical professionals can just look into that and understand that it's feasible. So this is number 3, head transplants, brain transplants, and reviving a cadaver within 6 to 12 hours of being declared dead. I think it's not.
That is with hypothermia, right? And
No. Hypothermia is easy. No, let's say that you are dead. I mean, I shoot at you, okay, because I want to kill you, and you are dead. Now, let's say that the EMS team arrives within half an hour. They start everything, but nothing happens. You are buried, okay? End of story. Now, I do believe that the brain can, and not only the brain, there is enough material out there that has never been looked into, but actually this is not such an extraordinary claim, because 2 years ago, perhaps you remember, an American team that revived the brains of pigs. They decapitated pigs and they recirculated blood into these brains, decapitated heads, after 4 hours. So brain dead for 4 hours, and they saw electricity coming back online, etc., etc. Actually, I proposed this in 2016, so 3 years before they did. But now it is the time just to move forward and just leave pigs behind and just test it on human cadavers, etc., etc. And that's what we have started to do. So that is another incredible thing, because you are losing young lives, because you are, nihilist. Nihilist means nihil, nothing. There's nothing to do. It's all gone, etc. Now, I beg to differ, and I think you will hear more from our group in coming years. Okay?
Awesome. It is super exciting, and I look forward to learn more. When you're ready, definitely when you're ready.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's have another conversation about that. It's been an honor to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for your time, and Where can they follow your work to the people that are listening to us?
Look, science-wise, I mean, we published regularly. So if you want to see something new, Medline, in order to see which medical journal we are published in. And but I generally publish books, so you find them all on Amazon, Amazon Mexico, whatever Amazon, because I can't bear peer review, others telling you that this is impossible. So I publish books, so I go direct to the people, and the people, I mean, even professionals decide. Okay?
I think that it's better like that, because usually people always talk about their limitations and not about the possibilities.
Exactly. Okay, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Invoca Lupo, right? Así.
Gracias. Hasta luego.
Nos vemos. Bye.
Hasta luego.